Let us first handle the Insert Into statement. Take a look once again at our Employees table. If we wanted to add a new record, we would do that with the query Insert into Employees. Then, we indicate the names of the column headers, which are ID, name, and age, and then the values will follow, for Mary, 29, in this very format. Before we write the select statement to see the output of our new inserted row, let's cast our minds back to the first part of this lesson, where we explored different query commands. You'll remember we mentioned the Data Definition Language, or DDL, is what database engineers use to define the architecture of the database. There is something known as the primary key, or the auto-increment feature that they can set. So the engineer would probably write a create statement like this for our employee table. They create the table employees, set the ID as an integer, and make it the primary key. Then they create a name column as text and set it as not null depending on certain requirements. And finally, the age column. When they say ID is primary key, it means several things, including that it can never be null and it must always be unique. In some instances, the database engineer would set the primary key to auto-increment. But please, before we move on, and I explain how the creation of the table affects the way we write our insert into statements, note that I am not showing you this create statement to teach how to create tables in a database. It is impossible to teach how to create tables in one lecture, because it is a whole discipline on its own, and setting some values as primary keys and others as not null and unique and foreign keys is not based on whims. You need to understand entity relationship models, cardinality, attributes, entities, primary and foreign keys, before you can properly architect a database with integrity. Some data analyst courses teach the creation of database tables without teaching the theory behind it, but that can never make you a data engineer. Since this is not a data engineering course, don't concern yourself with trying to fully understand every parameter in this create table statement. Just like an architect draws a skyscraper plan on paper before transforming it into an actual structure with blocks that can withstand the test of time and weather, creation of databases starts from understanding and modeling the ER models on paper, so to speak. Our data engineering team will create a course in the future that will thoroughly cover database architecture. In the real world, however, when you are inserting into tables where the database architect has designated an integer ID as the primary key with auto-increment, you can write the insert into statement without specifying the ID, and since they set the ID as primary key and auto-incrementing, running a select statement after either one of these two insert statements will give the same output. The new row with ID 4, Mary with age 29, will be successfully added to our table. The reason why the second approach works is because of how the create statement was set up by the engineer. But for the sake of our course and how we have set up our examples, always specify all column names when inserting, so use the first statement approach and not the second one. We are not teaching data engineering, so we did not set up primary keys. However, also note that if we are inserting into all columns of the table, we can decide to leave out the column headers and just move on to the specifying the values such that they cover all the headers and make sure the values are in the order just as the column names. You can now take a look at our updated employees table after including Mary's record. If we wanted to include an additional record, but in this situation we don't know the age of the new person, we can use the insert statement by specifying only the columns we have data for. So we would write insert into employees, ID, name, values 5 Juliet. If we select all records from the employees table, we'll see a null value in place of Juliet's age. Using the original employees table, without Mary and Juliet's records, let's assume we wanted to add 3 new records with no missing data. We can write one insert into statement like this: insert into employees, ID, name, age, values, and then include all the records with commas separating them and 1 semicolon at the end. When we run select star from employees, all the records will be added at once. What if we want to add multiple records, but some have missing or null data? We would need to write separate insert statements, first for Mary with complete information, and then for Juliet, where we don't know the age. When we select star from employees, we'll get the correct output with all our new records. Take note that we can add multiple records in one insert statement only when the columns we're adding are all the same, with no missing data. Read the learning notes, submit this page's question, and I'll see you in the continuation of this lesson where we learn how to update table information.